For me and for most of us, there is nothing more Christmassy than maple syrup. Whether you use it over some carrots and glaze it in the oven, or just put it on pork spare ribs, or just marinate some chicken tenders with it. However, I use maple syrup extensively in various different desserts all through the Christmas season. One dessert that I'm particularly slightly closer to, which I often make during this season, is my maple syrup infused hazelnut cake, which is a cross between a cake and a crumble. Let's get to creating this now. While simple cakes have a charm of their own, having two crossed together, that's if a crumble and a cake had a baby, this is what it would be. So to start off, we're going to get to creating the crumble dough first, loaded with hazelnut, maple and some flour. In goes 1 cup of hazelnuts. Along with that, I'm using 2/3 cups of muscovado sugar. And we're just going to allow it to blitz to a powder consistency. While this has given you the coarsest of sand textures, in goes 1.5 cup of refined flour, 1.5 teaspoon of cinnamon powder, and we just mix the two together. As the dry ingredients have all blitzed really well together and resembles the finest of crumbs, in goes 6 tablespoons of softened yellow butter. So I'm using salted butter just to give it that zing of salt in it. And now all this crumble dough needs is 1/4 cup of this gorgeous maple syrup. Just pour it in. And we are going to blitz this as well. With this dough ready, all we are going to do is set it aside and get to creating our cake batter now. So into a bowl it goes, and we're just going to let it sit on the side. Now, most of you all must be thinking that a crumble and a cake together, how will it taste? But years back, this crazy invention happened quite by accident when I had leftover cake batter and some leftover crumble dough. Just merged the dough together and then started refining the entire process. To start off, I've got about 2/3 cups of salted softened butter. It goes into my stand blender. With that, I'm using 2/3 cups of muscovado sugar going in as well. And we're just going to get it to cream and get the softest of consistencies. Now this cake is dense, but at the same time it's highly flavorful. So you want a contrasting flavor to balance things out. So in goes 2 capfuls of vanilla extract. And with the muscovado sugar and the butter well blended into each other, we start putting in the eggs, but one at a time. So 1 egg going in, and we're going to start blending it again. In goes the next egg. And finally in goes the 3rd and final egg. And we're just going to allow everything to emulsify and aerate with each other for about 4 to 5 minutes out here. And finally, as this is emulsifying, in goes 1/4 cup of maple syrup. While the wet ingredients have emulsified really well and have got light and airy, now is the time to actually mix in the dry ingredients together. So into my bowl, I've got about 2 cups of refined flour. Into that, I'm going to add about 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder and about 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, because this is a dense cake, so you need baking soda just to elevate it, and add about 1/4 teaspoon of some iodized salt into the mix. With everything in, all we're going to do is whisk this up so that it just mixes well together. All we're going to do now is fold in the flour and sour cream in alternating layers. So I've got about 2/3 cups of sour cream that I have, and we start off with the flour. On the slowest paddle, we are going to let everything mix and amalgamate with each other. So I'm dividing the flour into 3 parts and the sour cream into 2 batches. So you start with the flour and you end with the flour as well. As the flour mixes into this, now is the time to divide the sour cream into half and add it in. Blitz on the slowest number again. The second batch of flour going in. The last of the sour cream going in. If you want to keep this cake even more rustic, you can actually accumulate the cream that you've been boiling with the milk. And when it reaches about 2/3 of a cup full, use that. That's more richer and rustic in nature. Ending off with the last of the flour going in. Two minutes of blitzing, and this is ready to be put into a springform mold. As the cake batter is light and airy and nearly ready, now is the time to layer the two, that is the cake batter and the crumble, and allow it to bake together. So we're going to divide this into 2 parts now. One part going into a 8-inch springform mold that I've greased and lined with parchment paper. Just put half a batch down, smoothen it out before adding the other half on top. Just allow it to go into the nooks and crannies out here and settle well. Ensure it's even on all sides before adding the crumble. So you divide the crumble into 2 parts as well and just add it in between. This is a perfect tea time cake to enjoy with either some coffee, some tea, or just by itself. Sometimes I enjoy this even for morning breakfast. It's like the perfect pick-me-up that you need first thing in the morning. The next part of the cake going bang on top. You need to smoothen it out and scrape off any of this gorgeous batter from the mixing bowl out here. Just smoothen it over the entire crumble that you had encased within. I like creating this cake because it always is a confusion of sorts where till the end you don't really know what is happening within, but the end result every time that I've created it is by far tasty. And you can always enrich this further by just pouring about 1/4 cup of maple syrup on top of it fresh out of the oven. So as this has smoothened on top, nestled really well, we're going to add the crumble and finish off this cake. Scatter the remaining half of the crumble dough And the hazelnut flavor is so sharp with the maple syrup. It just screams and reeks Christmas and Christmas and Christmas. So just put this as coarse a texture as possible. Just ensure that it covers the entire cake like a warm blanket. You need to bake this slow and easy. Like a Christmas baby, it needs to be nurtured. So at 160 degrees Celsius for a good 60 minutes till it just marries into each other. The crumble has got that perfect golden brown on top, and nestled beneath it is that gorgeous cake. This is ready to be taken out and brought to a warm consistency before we dive right into it and enjoy it. Allowing this gorgeous cake to rest for 5 minutes. All we're going to do is release the spring foam and allow this to come to room temperature. This gorgeous maple and hazelnut infused crumble cake, as I call it, is a perfect tea time snack to enjoy all through the Christmas month and season. The warm flavors that maple bring to this creation, and don't forget to allow it to get that crusty brown on top just to emulate a glorious crumble. Don't forget to share loads of love by hitting on the like button. And as I always say, don't forget to subscribe.